talk a little bit about coherence. Coherence in writing refers to how your writing sort of hangs together. In other words, how one sentence in any given paragraph relates to the preceding sentence and to the sentence that comes after it. Likewise, it also refers to how each paragraph in a paper, in an essay, in a story, in a novel, whatever it may be, hangs together, meaning is related to the one that comes before and the one that follows. A good way to ensure that your writing has coherence, what some people call flow, that it flows together nicely in a way that's comprehensible, is to make use of what is often called transitional phrases or transitional sentences. We'll use the expression transitional sentences. So to give you an example, going back to the example of my topic on moving to Boston. So I'll just remind you that that was my main idea. It was moving to Boston. Okay, so let's say I've gotten the introduction out of the way, and now I'm contemplating how to transition from the end of the introduction, the very last sentence of the introduction, to the very first sentence of the body of the essay. So I'm here in the intro, I'm at the last sentence of the introduction. So just to give you an orientation here, and I'm trying to transition to the body. And I'm working on my last sentence. Okay, so one way I might do that is to say, rather formally, in an academic way, even though this sort of tone might not be not that it's inappropriate, but it's rather dull for a personal narrative. I could, in a very formal tone, say, in this paper, or in this essay, or in this account, I will now describe my experience of moving blah, 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 blah. Or I can try to do it in a more conversational tone. Considering the fact that it is a personal narrative, I may wish to imagine that I'm speaking directly to my audience, person to person. So I might wish to be more personable. Maybe I'll say in a more informal way. Something like this. Rather. Changing. My move to Boston was a life-changing experience. Let me tell you how it all began. I can probably reasonably assume that the reader knows that it began with a move. Or if they don't know that, they will know that in the next sentence. And in this way, I'm transitioning from the end of the intro to the beginning of the body by saying, for instance, I'm just kind of making this up on the... How about... Began with stacks of boxes and a lot of sweat and duct tape. This is a pretty decent transition, I dare say, from the end of the introduction to the beginning of the body. It began with I'm giving the reader an image of what I'm doing. I don't have to communicate it directly by saying, my wife went and ordered some boxes from Amazon.com. I went to the Home Depot and picked up XYZ. Boring. Or I could just give them an image of that with the sentence, it began with stacks of boxes and a lot of sweat and duct tape. And then I might explain to them, other preparations I made. The point is, I can transition in this way without being terribly dull or boring, and by a rule that some writers call the show don't tell rule, which is especially appropriate to this kind of writing. In academic writing, sometimes you may have no choice but to explain in very plain language. You know, you're telling and not necessarily showing. The distinction between those two things is by no means clear, but show don't tell just means, if I'm often in the context of storytelling, it's better to show the idea you're trying to explain by way of example than to just say in plain language exactly like in the example I just gave you. Instead of telling you the details of what I did in order to prepare, I could just say this is how it began and give you sort of an image that communicates to you just as well what I would have said in so many sentences. So that's an example of a transition. Again, the best way to figure out how to use transitions for yourself and in your own writing is to read other writers. So I can't stress this enough. You have to read other writing in order to get good at writing yourself. If there are any other tips you'd like to see, please let me know. But I think for now, this video is already going at 6 minutes. I'll just leave it here to give, and I hope this was enough really to give you an idea of what a transition might look like. So see you next video.